Hiya.
So, since I last saw you at the beginning of the month on the retreat, I have had a lot of loss. So, my lovely dad, who I mentioned during the retreat, died on Sunday night, just gone. And I lost the tooth that was infected, had to have that taken out. And it was all a bit of a traumatic one and got infected and had a drug reaction, went to hospital in the middle of the night. So, that was a sort of very painful physical loss.
Mm.
um, and the loss of the marriage that I spoke about continues apace. So this really, really intense, like within a short number of couple of weeks, really, this intense thing of loss going on. And I just wondered if you would help me explore that a little, because there's definitely, when I've sat and contemplated and meditated and so on, there's a sense of what's losing what.
Yeah,
What is this idea of loss that you have? And yet at the body level it hurts,
yeah,
at the heart level it hurts, at the human level it
yeah.
hurts a lot, you know so I'm just trying to sort of work out how to be with that human level that is so very painful, while also kind of leaning into the sense that I do have, that, well, how can you be separated from someone you're not separate from?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
absolutely. Yeah. It's always paradoxical, isn't it, to live like this? And there'll be an increasingly deep knowing of there can never be any loss. Everything is my own self, the self, and phenomena are just coming and going. Bodies are coming and going. Teeth are coming and going. And probably money, the dentist. Everything's changing and in flux there, and there's no separate being at all. And there's nothing that separate being could lose. It doesn't exist. Therefore, all of its stories don't exist. And absolute peace and silence that come from that, and honoring of all the ways that infinite silence shows up, or awareness, as we're calling it tonight. And one of the ways it's showing up right now is a daughter who's grieving. So the suffering doesn't come from the grieving process. The suffering comes from the rejection of any part of our experience. So can I be infinite and formless and the only thing that exists, and a woman sitting here wishing I could have one more moment with my father? I experienced this when my father left his body, and it was a total living paradox. It was a great relief because he'd been very, very ill physically. But there was also something quite sad that I'd never be able to hug his body again in that way, or to sit with him, have a cup of tea like we used to do, or any of the things we used to do. And still a recognition that he isn't really gone at the same time. And a very confusing to the mind, but very natural. I am both of those. And even to say both of those is really trying to make them two, and they're not. But I'm going to honor my experience completely, all of it, the humanness and the beingness, because they're not two, they're one. They have to both be completely honored, whatever that looks like. In our human experience, that can be really, really good experience or really, really bad. And everything in between, right, as you're noticing. And for me, after a deeper seeing, there was this period of looking at some things, going through some things that were not what I would want to experience, exactly, loss and things like that. And coming to experience going through those, but as the infinite self, which could not reject any part of that. It could not say, there's no one to lose, so I should not be feeling this way. It just didn't say that. It was totally being what it is and what it was, like the fullness of that. And it's just even then there's no suffering. Even while grieving is going on, there's no suffering, because I'm not rejecting that grieving, that process, whatever that is. And I've got no idea about what it should be from there. It just is what it is. It takes as long as it takes, in whatever shape it takes. And there's something just very natural and authentic about that. That I will have experiences, good, bad, and downright ugly, for the rest of the body's existence. But I am watching that from the place of stillness and compassion for whatever the body and mind and apparent separate self is going through, without any should or shouldn't at all on that, without any capacity to reject it or say it shouldn't be that way.
I think there's probably a little thread of belief still going on here, that there must be some wrong thinking or wrong believing going on for it to hurt as much as it does to lose my dad, for example. So maybe, and again, I think that's probably partly from some of the sort of teachings you get that seem to suggest anything that's unpleasant that's going on is the result of wrong believing. And what I'm kind of resonating with as you're speaking is just that sense that if the body is hurting, whether it's physically from a tooth or whatever it is in the nervous system and the heart that hurts when a loved body is now gone, that's happening, I don't know, maybe very beautifully at the human level, maybe very just rightly, because that's what is happening. And maybe I can try and just let go of this idea that that the strength of that grief response isn't anything to do with some,
it's just what's happening,
not
isn't
spiritual enough thinking, but that
Yeah.
it's just a natural process.
I went to a funeral about 6 to 12 months after it really become clear that some kind of really deep seeing had happened, and most of the thought process had stopped because it was just being what I am. And I didn't even really know this person that well. I mean, I'd spent a couple of years being close to them, but we hadn't seen each other in a while. And I was crying more than this person's parents even, I think. And I was just quite shocked at how much grief was going on in that moment during the actual ceremony. But refreshing, it was so refreshing to just not be able to try to change that or even want to just fall apart, if that's what it was to be me in that moment. And later out of that came some sense of maybe there's still a little separation thinking in that, but it just naturally arose an urge to kind of investigate that deeper. It wasn't like, this shouldn't be happening, I must look at my thinking. It just arose softly by itself, and a curiosity to look at that a bit more. So maybe that'll happen here, maybe it won't, but if it does, it does. And it's perhaps one of the best things about being the infinite self consciously is you just can't try to change yourself or reject yourself. There's a deep self-respect there, isn't it? Something, authenticity in that, whatever that looks like. And I've no idea what it looks like to be awake in this moment, or it looks like this right now. It looks like this. And in the next moment, it'll look like something else.
Yeah, thank you. And when you described that experience that you had at the funeral, there was a kind of sweetness. It was easier to see that because there isn't some tangle of Ginny should be or shouldn't be like this or that. It's just like, oh yeah, of course that's what would happen, and that's just sweet. There's a sweetness to that.
Because I walked in there and I'm really the one handing out tissues and comforting everyone else. It happened again when we had to take my sister's dog, a beautiful, beautiful dog, on his final journey. And I went to support my sister. And she ended up supporting me because I was just, in a mess. And she coped a lot better than she thought she would. But again, there was just no capacity left to go, that shouldn't have been that way. It was just how it was. And the whole, the deepest thing about waking, I mean, there's love and bliss and all that stuff sometimes. but mostly it's authenticity, isn't it? I am what I am. End of story. No story other than that. I just am as I'm appearing right now. And I deeply honor and respect that, even if it's not a pleasant experience. And sometimes these not so pleasant experiences show us that, wow, I actually have the capacity to just be this grieving person without any self-rejection at all going on. Without, come on, pull yourself out of it, get yourself back on, whatever we would normally do to ourselves. And hopefully you're noticing that that is just mostly absent or completely absent.
Yeah. Thank you. It's just really helpful to kind of hear you reflecting that seeing back.
It showed me the self, I'm saying it like it's different to me, but it showed me through a variety of experiences that I just don't know what it's going to look like. And finally, I stopped trying to figure that out. It's going to look like whatever it looks like. There's a richness in that, a peace in that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.